US President Donald Trump has stated that the US attack on Iran is advancing ahead of schedule, but warned that the conflict could last longer than the initial estimate of about a month. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that military action against Iran could continue for some time, but it won't last years. He has also suggested that this campaign could pave the way for peace between Saudi Arabia and Israel. The Israeli military has reported that it shot down 2 unmanned drones that crossed into Israeli territory from Lebanon, part of rising cross-border tensions tied to the broader Middle East conflict. US President Donald Trump took to Truth Social to criticize former Presidents Obama and Biden's nuclear deal with Iran, claiming it would have led to a nuclear weapon 3 years ago. This comes amid escalating Middle East tensions. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney arrives in Australia to strengthen relations between the two nations as global tensions rise, focusing on defense, trade, and critical minerals. Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara held a telephone conversation with Prime Minister of Pakistan Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif on the latest developments in the region, amid the recent escalation as the two sides jointly affirmed their commitment to develop Syrian-Pakistani relations amid heightened tensions in the region. Zimbabwe on Monday began releasing nearly 4,000 inmates who were granted presidential amnesty in the bid to ease overcrowding in prisons. The cabinet announced the amnesty in February on the same day it approved sweeping changes to the constitution as a plan to extend 83-year-old President Emerson Mnangagwa's term till 2030. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, has confirmed that the company is collaborating with the US Department of Defense to update their agreement, ensuring OpenAI services won't be used by intelligence agencies like the NSA. Now we start this hour with US President Donald Trump has warned that the ongoing military campaign against Iran could last longer than initially planned. Speaking from the White House, Trump has stated that the U.S. is already ahead of its time projections, which estimated a duration of 4 to 5 weeks. However, he has emphasized that the U.S. has the capability to continue far beyond that time frame. President Trump has also defended his decision to launch the strike, calling it the last best chance to stop Iran's nuclear ambitions and eliminate the threats posed by the Iranian regime. He has reiterated that this action was necessary to prevent the potential development of nuclear weapons by Iran. Let's listen in.
This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly, after that he'll get bored. I don't get bored. It's not.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that the ongoing US and Israeli strikes on Iran won't become an endless war, but warned the conflict could take some time. In an interview, Netanyahu has explained that both countries acted because Iran had been building new nuclear weapon sites, making them impossible to target in the near future. Netanyahu has also highlighted that Iran had been constructing underground bunkers for its missile and atomic bomb programs since the June war. Let's listen in.
I said it could be quick and decisive. It may take some time, but it's not going to take years. It's not an endless war. The reason that we had to act now is because they were, after we hit their nuclear sites and their ballistic missiles program, you'd think they learned a lesson, but they didn't, because they're unreformable. They're totally fanatic about this, about the goal of destroying America. So they started building new sites, new places, underground bunkers that would make their ballistic missile program and their atomic bomb program immune within months. If no action was taken now, no action could be taken in the future. And then they could target America, they could blackmail America, they could threaten us and threaten everyone in between. So action had to be taken, and you needed a resolute president like Donald J. Trump.
Now we welcome Mr. Daniel Boardman. He's a Canadian journalist, joins us live from Toronto for my first question. Thank you very much, Mr. Boardman, for joining us. Now, thank you. Now, how do you analyze the current escalating situation? Do you think that this Operation Epic Fury is going to continue for a long time?
Well, I mean, I know, like, by long time, do you mean as long as the Iraq war or the Afghanistan war? No. Is it going to be longer than the 12-day war? Most likely. I mean, I think we've said around 4 weeks. And I do think it'd be around that time. If you want like a time frame generally of what you're talking about, I do think they want to have this wrapped up as a victory by the midterms in November, if we're going to talk about any sort of like political will that's going to wrapped up by. So I do think there's a genuine will, if there is any hard timeline. I think that's kind of what you're looking at maybe there. But it depends on how, again, it's a war, so it depends on how everything goes. You can't say like, well, how long is it going to take? Well, you know, both sides get to play the game. It depends who shoots back. Does someone gain power? Do the Iranian generals start fighting among themselves? Do they rally? How many proxies come into play? How many this and that? Does Reza Pahlavi, you know, get a civilian army? Does it, like, there's 100 different ways this can go. We're on day 2. So it's going to be a few days. I mean, assets are still now moving into the region further. I think you'll have to wait and see until the full degradation of the IRGC forces and their ability to sort of commit war. And then once you have, like, you know, full U.S. air assets, you'll start to see what is the situation on the ground. Like, how much control can the Iranians maintain over their own civilians, and then what happens there. So a lot of things still happen in the pacing. It's impossible 2 days into this thing to predict exactly when it's going to end. But I do think it does sound like they came in military planning. There was a sort of at least a 4-week timeline in which they thought it would take to degrade enough of Iran's, you know, central command to the point where you know, they'd get to this point. But it turns out, you know, Khamenei wanted to have a meeting with a bunch of high-ranking officials, and they just took the opportunity to get ahead of schedule. So here we are.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boardman, for sharing that. I'd like to also welcome Mr. Daniel Wagner. He's the CEO of Country Risk Solutions, joins us live from Portland. Thank you very much, Mr. Wagner, for joining us again. Mr. Wagner, what's your take? And also, do you think that building on Mr. Boardman's answer, do you think that how will Iran move on with their strategy in balancing counterattacks while also controlling the country within Iran, or the proxies and etc., and also protecting their sovereignty?
Well, there's a lot of unknown unknowns here. Let's talk at least about what they're doing domestically and what they're doing in response to the attacks. In response to the attacks, it seems to me what they're doing is they have limited ability to respond with materiel. Their ballistic missile capability has been degraded. Their ability to deploy their navy has been severely degraded. Many of their ships are at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. So what I think they're doing is they're measuring very carefully how they are responding to preserve what firepower they have. So when we see that they're reaching out and attacking half a dozen Gulf states with sporadic missile attacks or drone attacks, seems to me what they're doing is trying to catch these Gulf states off guard, not to draw them in, not to attack enough to draw them in, but to make them weary, to keep them on guard, to ensure that their populations are scared, that their governments are preoccupied, etc. My own view is that they don't have much in the way of drones and missiles to have sustained heavy bombardments of US military bases or other targets. So let's see. I would imagine that in the space of a week, much of this will be resolved. Not entirely, but in terms of the bulk. As far as domestic goes, they still have the ability, very much so, to repress their population. And that's really the biggest question mark that we have now, is to what extent do they have the ability to project their power domestically like they did before?
And I would like to go to Mr. Boardman next. Mr. Boardman, do you think there's a difference of strategy in the Iranian foreign minister versus the Iranian IRGC forces? Do you think there's maybe different opinion there? Do you think there's internal cracks or difference?
No, this is sort of a function of the regime, and the foreign ministry has been, like, if you want to categorize it, part of the reformist wing of the Islamic Republic, which has never really existed. There's this game that the Islamic Republic has played with the world of, like, hardliner or reformist. Oh, IRGC, hardliner or reformist. But it's always been a dog and pony show for gullible Western leaders, for the most part, to play this. So the foreign minister, their job is to sort of push propaganda that is kind of digested in the Western world. Essentially lie. Their job is to lie. Okay? So they're incredibly skilled liars, whereas you would find the more radical clerics sort of telling the truth, but they do it in Farsi to their own people, and that's sort of where you can tell the truth. So, you know, the Iranian foreign minister will forever going on about how they're peaceful, and, you know, they don't want nukes, but they have nukes, but they're peaceful nukes, but they're not trying to build, like, so in terms of cracks and divisions between the foreign ministry, no, they're going to continue to sort of, their job is to lie in a way that is palatable to Westerners, to cause, you know, strategic destabilization among the populace to erode support for the war, you could say. But yeah, they're lying is the short of it. And the IRGC generals are trying to kill everyone they can. That's their job. So they're trying to bring about a 12th Imam apocalypse for bring back the Mahdi. That's their job. And the Iranian foreign minister, from, you know, Javad Zarif to the current one, his job is to lie to you. So that's what's going.
Thank you, Mr. Boardman, for sharing that. Building on that, Mr. Wagner, what's your take?
Well, I have a similar view. Part of what they do is for domestic consumption. Part of it is for foreign consumption. I've always been very skeptical about when they have a, quote, reformist president or some other senior reformist person, a foreign minister. There is no proper reformist wing of their government. I mean, it's been hardline since 1979, and even though there may be variations on a theme, the basics of the government haven't changed. And that, of course, is what we're trying to arrange now. Question in my mind is whether the Iranian people are going to feel emboldened enough to rise up. And only time is going to tell, of course. They're going to have seen that the domestic capabilities of the government have been sufficiently degraded to enable them, if you will, to do what President Trump has asked of them, which is to take over their government. I know that they still believe that they will be slaughtered if they do so right now, which is presumably why we're not seeing that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wagner, for sharing that. Requesting both the guests to please stay with us. Now, bringing India. India has expressed deep concern over the ongoing US and Israeli strikes on Iran, urging all parties to pursue dialogue and diplomacy to protect civilians. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in an attack on February 28, triggering Iranian retaliation across the region. Latin American leaders have strongly condemned the strikes, calling for a peaceful resolution. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has emphasized the human cost, while Cuban and Colombian leaders have also criticized the attack on civilians in Iran. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has defended his decision not to join the strikes despite criticism from US President Donald Trump. Keir Starmer has said the UK must always act in its national interest. In Pakistan, protests continue after Khamenei's death, with at least 23 killed, as President Asif Ali Zardari has condemned the war on Iran. Let's listen into what the leaders have shared.
Pakistan remains deeply concerned at the recent grave developments and has always sought to prevent unilateral attacks on any country. In this spirit, we strongly condemn the war being waged on Iran while negotiations were underway. We have reaffirmed our support for sovereignty and territorial integrity of our brotherly nation. I join all Pakistanis to condoling the martyrdom of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
No es un asunto de si uno está de acuerdo con un régimen u otro, sino que quien paga es la población civil. El bombardeo de una escuela de niñas. Y en todos los países, al final, quienes sufren pues es los pueblos. Entonces, por eso el llamado de México a elevar siempre la solución pacífica.
Now we welcome back both our guests. First, I would like to welcome back Mr. Daniel Boardman for this. Mr. Boardman, thank you for staying with us. You know, as we see a lot of international leaders comment on the situation, but no one has been aiding openly Iran or backing Iran openly other than Hezbollah, the proxy of Iran itself. Do you think Iran did have true friends, I must say, like Russia or China? Who do you think those are?
There's no true friends in the axis of evil, is what you're learning. Russia historically is the worst friend in the entire world, and they keep the record up. This is standard Russian practice. So there's no surprise there. China, you know, they sent more rocket fuel and like they've supported, but like they're not gonna get involved in a outside their territory. They don't have the ability to help. And the proxies were never really friends. They were proxies, right? The Islamic Republic did not come to the aid of Hezbollah and Hamas and PIJ when they were being dismantled, right? The job of the proxy is to die for the motherland or die for the puppet master and not the other way around. So they have the remnants of Hezbollah. I don't want to completely, dump on the IGC right now. There's a few riffraff Iraqi Shia militants. I think they're attacking the embassy. So they got some riffraff in Iraq, and it looks like they might have been able to be part of some instigations in Bahrain, possibly. So they've got this is their version of the Avengers. It's not the most impressive coalition the world's ever seen. I would take the U.S. Israeli combined Air Force, Navy, and militaries over them, and I think it's kind of playing out that way. So no, this is, again, if you want, like, I don't know how many proof points. BRICS isn't real. Like, BRICS is not a real thing. It's not. It's definitely not a defense alliance. It's not a counter NATO. It's not even like an economic anything alliance. Yeah. So no, Russia's not coming to their aid. China's not coming to their aid. Hezbollah's gonna die. They've got 6 rockets off. They might be able to get a few dozen more off before. Again, they don't have the element of surprise, and they can't even get the Houthis to contribute here. Like, where are they can't even call up a bunch of Houthi strikes for the good old days.
Yes.
So
Yes,
they do not look very strong right now.
Thank you, Mr. Boardman, for sharing that. Building on that, I would like to also bring in welcoming back Mr. Wagner to this. Mr. Wagner, what's your take, and how do you think Iran will, have this last push, if I may say, in terms of using their proxies? And like Mr. Boardman said, there are some other maybe people who support Iran or Iranian regime in Iraq as well.
Well, the leopard doesn't change its spots, and so I don't think there's any reason we should expect that the ongoing relationship between the Iranian government and its proxies is going to not be in play in a situation like this. It was always, in my mind, just a question of time until Hezbollah and some of the other proxies got into the game. I find myself wondering, how long is it going to be until the UAE and Saudi and Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, are they going to join in here? It seems to me that Iran is walking a fine line by stirring things up in these countries, but not stirring it up enough to solicit a military response. If the Gulf countries decided to get involved, seems to me, with everyone ganging up on Iran, this would be over much more quickly, and it would be doing wonders for the idea of sovereignty among the Gulf nations. Even where we are today has done a lot toward that end. And I would add that the idea of having additional countries join the Abraham Accords stands much greater chance as a result of what's gone on here than would be the case if this war had not been pursued.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wagner and Mr. Boatman, for sharing that insight. Please do stay with us as we have another breaking news coming in from Israel. Now, breaking news, the Israeli Air Force has released a statement confirming the interception of 2 unmanned aerial vehicles that crossed into Israeli territory from Lebanon. The UAVs were detected at 1:43 GMT in the Western Galilee airspace, prompting an immediate response. The Air Force successfully neutralized the threat. Additionally, an earlier alert at 1:37 GMT in Gush Etzion was determined to be a false identification. The interception underscores ongoing security measures along Israel's northern border. Now we move on. The Israeli Defense Forces have launched airstrikes targeting Hezbollah command centers and weapons storage facilities in Beirut, Lebanon. This comes after Hezbollah fired missiles into Israel, prompting retaliation from the IDF. The strikes have resulted in at least 52 deaths and 154 injuries across southern Lebanon and Beirut's southern suburbs. In a related move, Israel has issued evacuation orders for dozens of villages in southern Lebanon, warning residents to move north for their safety. Israel's military has stated that all options are on the table, signaling the possibility of a ground offensive to dismantle Hezbollah's operations. Meanwhile, Hezbollah has condemned Lebanon's government decision to ban its military activities, calling it a betrayal as tensions continue to rise. Now we welcome back Mr. Boatman for this. Thank you very much, Mr. Boatman, for staying with us. Now, building on the earlier remarks of Mr. Wagner, Foreign Minister of Iran, Arakchi, has, however, said that, to join for the countries in GCC or the Muslim countries in the Gulf to join Iran or support Iran. However, of course, from Western side must be thinking that we should gang up, or considering all these GCC countries should gang up on Iran to end this conflict faster. Do you think Iran had some kind of miscalculations in terms of, thinking that they can get by with attacking US bases in Iran, in the Gulf states, like they did last year, and Qatar did not attack them back? Do you think they had some miscalculations?
I'm not sure if miscalculations is the right word. I just think that there might be a bit of a, again, like messianic apocalyptic slant to the view of things. Like they are, I've covered their Al-Quds Day rally where the RGC funded, and they make a big thing of like the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. Like there's a very big culture of 1 versus 1,000 to the militant jihadists. So going out in a blaze of glory, fighting against literally everyone, it doesn't make sense to you and me who don't want to blow ourselves up for the cause right now, to be blunt about it. But to a lot of people in the true believer core, this is, I think, a bent among them. So I don't think you're seeing a strategic miscalculation where they think they're playing this incredible 3D chess where they have these slight pressure points in the UAE where they know the line of perfect terror, and I just think they this is the ultimate in sort of messianic chest beating, where they're showing the non-believers that they are cowards and dogs and they are infidels afraid of death. Even in Saudi Arabia, they'll fire it at Mecca itself, claiming they're infidels and unbelievers in their quest to truly get there. And I think that's what you're seeing, where they're lashing against all these countries. Like, if there was a rational actor in the leadership truly, who possessed that, we wouldn't be fighting with them right now here. But the problem is, and I think this is what is borne out by many of the what you would call hawks or neocons, is we can't let these people get nuclear weapons. This is the threat. If these men who are attacking every country in the Gulf, it's not some grand strategy. It's like it's a bit crazy. If you give them a nuclear weapon, they'll use it to bring apart some apocalyptic fantasy, which is clearly the way they're acting right now. It seems like the best explanation to explain this, because you're not going to get any credible military expert to say, yeah, would you do what if you were the IRGC shoes, is this how you would handle a warfare scenario? Just fire drones at the Burj Khalifa. No, I don't think you would get that. So I think you're dealing with not grand, not to say there isn't military strategy here, but I do think what we're dealing with is a messianic Shia Islamist death cult. And that makes up a significant amount of the IRGC. They're the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Their goal is to guard the revolution. Khamenei himself never said he was a leader of Iran. He always said he's the leader of the revolution. The goal of the IRGC, the Quds Force, is to export the revolution. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. And these people can't have nuclear weapons. They can't have ballistic missiles. They can't have a navy. They can't have an air force, and they got to go. So
Yes.
Wrap it up. It's time to get rid of this, and I think that's what the U.S.-Israeli strikes are ultimately about.
Thank you, Mr. Boardman, for joining us and sharing that insight with us. Now, moving on, an Israeli strike has targeted a building in the Heret area of southern Beirut, hitting an office of Al-Manar TV, which is affiliated with Hezbollah. The attack is part of Israel's ongoing military campaign aimed at Hezbollah-related sites in Lebanon. No casualties have been reported following the bombing of the Al-Manar TV office, but the situation remains tense as Israel escalates its operations in the region. Now we welcome back Mr. Daniel Wagner for this. Thank you very much, Mr. Wagner, for staying with us. Building on Mr. Boardman's answer in our last discussion, who do you think who could be the rational actor with building on how Mr. Boardman was, the characteristics that Mr. Boardman laid out for us, that these characteristics should be present in, or the thought process that should be present in the next leader who's supposed to take Iran. And also, what do you think about, some of our guests have mentioned the current president, Pezeshkian of Iran, that U.S. and Israel has purposely not eliminated him because they're eyeing him as the next leader?
Well, that's certainly a possibility. Mr. Lajani, former foreign minister, also is a possibility, I would think. My question is, to what extent is there going to be a tipping point here where the Iranians finally realize that they are not going to win this battle? It's pretty clear to everyone, perhaps but them, that they're not going to be winning. So at what point do they decide, unless we're going to be totally suicidal for ourselves and our country, we should probably lay down our arms and either start negotiating again or completely change the style of government, or perhaps the people will do it for them. There will come a tipping point when this will happen. And at that point in time, my hope is that the people will ultimately choose who will be the next leader, rather than remnants of the ancien regime. I think that formula that was used in Venezuela, where you simply decapitate a single leader, and then all of a sudden the people underneath him turn a new leaf, and we can do business with them. That's not what's needed here. We need wholesale change, and that's why this campaign has been undertaken. My own view also is that this should have been done a long time ago. Successive U.S. administrations, successive Israeli administrations might have wanted to do it. They didn't have the ability to do it because the Americans weren't willing to play along or perhaps lead the effort. But that's all changed now. And I do think that we're likely to see a favorable outcome in the long run. It may take weeks or perhaps even a couple of months to get there. Nobody knows for sure, of course. But once that happens, I've got to believe that the outcome that the Americans and Israelis, much of the Gulf, much of the world want to see for Iran and its people will ultimately happen.
With that, I'd like to thank both our guests, Mr. Daniel Boatman and Mr. Daniel Wagner, for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Asia. Afghanistan and Pakistan are engaged in heavy clashes across their 2,600 kilometers border. Entering the fifth day of fighting, both sides have targeted each other's military posts, with Afghan forces destroying a Pakistani tank in Paktika province. The fighting began after the Taliban launched retaliatory strikes against Pakistani installations in response to Pakistan targeting militants in Afghanistan. At least 435 Afghan troops have been killed and hundreds of military posts destroyed. Despite calls from friendly countries such as Qatar to mediate, there has been no progress towards peace. Both sides continue to claim victories, but the situation remains deadlocked, with no signs of a ceasefire. Now we move on to our tech news. Amazon's cloud unit, AWS, is dealing with significant power and connectivity issues across data centers in the UAE and Bahrain. This comes as Iranian retaliatory strikes target airports, ports, and residential areas in the Gulf. AWS has confirmed that 2 of its data centers in the UAE were without power on Monday after objects struck one of the facilities, causing sparks and a fire. As a result, the company has shut off power to contain the damage. The cloud provider reported some recovery earlier in the day, but now says customers should turn to other regions while they work to restore services. They warned that full recovery could take several hours. While AWS did not confirm or deny a link to the Iranian strikes, the timing of these events raises question about the impact of the current geopolitical tensions. That's all we have time for.